This is a meeting of the Forest Hills Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a community public hearing. There is a time for public comment during the meeting as indicated in Agenda Item 10. Last month, we tried out a new system of comment cards, which I think worked pretty well. We're actually going to have a little bit of a discussion about it later on in the meeting. But in the meantime, if you are interested in speaking at public comments, please feel free to fill out one of the cards over there, and they will be picked up at the beginning of the superintendent's report. And now I'd like to introduce Principal Amy Palo for the welcome. Oh, and if I may interrupt quickly, I apologize. Our normal secretary is running a bit late. She has parent-teacher conferences tonight. So I would like to appoint a secretary for the meeting. Mrs. Neinmeyer, would you be willing to serve as secretary? Great, thank you so much.
Good evening. We're so happy to host the Forest Hills Public Schools Board of Education meeting tonight at Eastern High School. If you've had the opportunity to talk to students or staff from Eastern, they've probably told you that we take our Hawk pride very seriously around here. We have all worked together over the last several years to build a culture of support, connection, and success. Not only do our kids demonstrate their Hawk pride in our classrooms each day by working hard and having tremendous academic success, they're also showing the world that they're unstoppable outside of the classroom. Our theater program is growing. We have 3 healthy music programs. We have 35 athletic opportunities for our students. We have 30 clubs and organizations, including clubs like the Quiz Bowl, the Community Giving Club, and even a chicken wing eating club. So we have something for everyone here. These are all providing amazing experiences for our kids. For example, over the weekend, we have a new club that was formed this year called Youth in Government. These students traveled to Lansing over the weekend and represented Eastern High School while debating bills on the House floor. Our students are participating in extracurricular activities at our highest level ever, and it's paying dividends. Our students are excelling in athletics. We've had state championships and state runners-up in multiple sports over the last year, and they're demonstrating their Hawk pride at many events, such as Science Olympiad, Robotics, DECA, and Mock Trial, which, by the way, this past weekend we won our first ever state championship in Mock Trial. Being a Hawk means you work hard, you care about others, and you push yourself to succeed. And our kids are doing an amazing job at this. We are so proud of our kids and staff at Eastern High School, and we will continue to celebrate our Eastern Hawk pride each and every day. May I do the academic?
Yes, please.
Awesome. So many of you may recall that Eastern High School began a pilot program a year ago. This program was designed to help students learn and practice 21st century skills while learning about career options from individuals that are practicing currently in the field. In a short time, this program has had a tremendous impact on our school and all of our students. I'm excited to invite Mrs. Nicole Deckrow, our career counselor, to share information on this program. You'll also be able to hear from sophomore Audrey Papke, junior Jackson Yulin, senior Shadi Kamas, and one of our professional mentors, Kristen Rampy.
All right. You can go to the next slide, I think. Yeah, we might need to. Thank you. It'll come back in. Yeah. All right, so as you can see the slide up there right now, that is the exact slide that many of you were present for last year. Just about a year ago, I presented to you all with my plan for our scaffolded career exploration program that we were going to put into the Hawk teams and take the lead. And I am so excited to share with you what we've done in a year and what our kids had to experience. You can go to the next one. So this year, we just wrapped up. So far, we've had 57 career speakers, 20 professional mentors. So that's 77 volunteer community members that came in to share their career expertise to our students. And we're really proud of that. Last year, I told you I do individual counseling. So part of the community mentors and the community speakers, they can Zoom with students. We do individual appointments. Kids can make appointments with me just like they would their regular caseload alpha counselor. And I meet each student where they're at. Sometimes we meet once, sometimes we meet 6 times. It just depends on what their goals are and what they're looking for. This year, the freshmen, they had the first part of the year they did getting to know high school and kind of understanding the game of high school. But second semester, we started dipping our toe in the career speakers. And so they heard from these 6 career speakers. You can go to the next. So this is just a couple of pictures of our sophomores in the auditorium. So each week, our sophomores, the whole class would go to the auditorium to hear from one career speaker. So the whole grade heard from the same career speaker. Go ahead. So to speak of that more in depth, we have Aubrey to come up to share both her individual counseling experience, and I'll leave this slide up for you guys to kind of take a gander. This is who the sophomores had for the year.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Papke. I'm a sophomore here at Eastern, and this year I wanted to start gaining some experience in the career path that I'm interested in. And I've decided to meet with Mrs. Decro every once in a while to see what ideas she had on taking steps towards this career path. So she was able to set up a Zoom meeting with a meteorologist named Elena Dockler, who was able to answer a ton of questions I had about the meteorology world. From there, she mentioned many resources that could help, including a monthly meeting that I could attend with other meteorologists. Going to those meetings has been an amazing opportunity, and I've learned so much about meteorology already and met a lot of amazing contacts for down the road. Ms. Dockler was able to come here to Eastern and present for our sophomore class during our Take the Lead program, and it has been so interesting and very insightful for many students. Continuing to meet with Mrs. Decro, she pushed me to reach out, and I reached out to a few more contacts and was able to set up a job shadow with Matt Kirkwood at Wood TV8 and Brandon Hoving at the National Weather Station. Mrs. Decro and I continue to meet every once in a while to further discuss updates, and we currently are reaching out to a new contact. I am so glad to have started my journey and to continue working with her for the next 2 years. Thank you.
You can go to the next slide. All right, so next up we have juniors, which I'm really excited about this one. We had over 40 speakers in for our junior class, and the format was every student heard from 3 speakers a week. So it was a 15-minute speaker, 5 minutes of passing, 15-minute speaker, 5 minutes of passing, 15-minute speaker. We had students fill out a survey in the spring and tell us what their preferred career pathway. So we based our classroom on the preferred pathway. So every student heard from their preferred pathway first every week, and then they heard from 2 others. So throughout the semester, they heard from all 6 pathways, but they heard the most from their selected pathway. So to speak to this better, we have Jackson Euland. You can go to the next.
Good evening, all. I am Jackson Euland. I'm a junior here at Forest Hills Eastern, and I'm here to speak about what Ms. Decro already told you all about. So 3 given speakers, 15 minutes each, was great for our limited attention span in my generation. And as she said, the first speaker was of my pathway of interest, and on one given week, it was a venture capitalist, and that was something I already knew that there was a chance I'd want to go into that. And so that was a great reassurance that that was something that I truly was interested in. And my next speaker was a college professor, and that was not a career that I even was on my radar before that speech. And after that, I went into it going, that might be something I want to do later in my life after I've already completed a career, so something that I'm also considering. And my last speaker was an interior designer, and that was something I went into thinking that was something I didn't want to do. And this is kind of something that people look over in these speakers, is it's good reassurance of something that maybe you thought you wanted to go into, maybe you didn't, but it's also reassuring that you didn't want to go into that, and that speaker kind of confirmed that. Not that that's not something for other people in my class, like some people in my room also really enjoyed that speech. So it was a really, really great way to get exposed to lots of careers I've never heard of, but also careers that I had heard of and confirmed my interest in them. Thank you.
So this is a list, and I can send this to you later, but there's a lot of really cool careers up there. And from the survey, we had kind of like what Jackson said, so many kids realize, oh, I thought I wanted to be this, but I actually didn't. Or, oh, this is something I never knew about. So giving them something they knew and then 2 things they really didn't think they'd want to hear was really successful. Next. All right, for our seniors, we did a smaller blitz, same format for the seniors, so they heard 9 career speakers instead of 15. But then we also did a professional mentor where they had 4.5 hours of time over the year with one professional mentor, 8 to 10 students. And so this mentor came in twice in the fall live, 2 Zooms, and once in the spring. And I will have Shadi come up and talk about his experience with that.
Hello, my name is Shadi Kamas, and I'm a senior at Forest Hills Eastern, and I had the pleasure of having a phenomenal mentor, Miss Rampy, throughout the school year. She walked me through her career experiences and past, leading up to running a successful business. Not only was I helped with building leadership skills and improving my adaptive capacity during team building activities, I was also introduced to the business world, including platforms like LinkedIn to connect and strengthen professional relationships and networking, and also learning new skills. Ms. Rampy also provided me with interviewing tips and advice for my position I would wish to apply for in the future. With the conclusion of Take the Lead, Ms. Rampy also gifted me a leadership book to further augment my knowledge and help improve myself daily. Thank you again to Ms. Rampy, and thank you for your time.
So we have Miss Rampy here tonight. She is one of our mentors to just give her quick minute perspective. Come on up.
Good evening. Ooh, that was close. My name is Kristen Rampy. You may have just heard about me. I am a CPA, and I'm the owner of a boutique management consulting business with 8 employees in 6 states because it's 2023. I live near Chief Hazy Cloud Park, and no, I can't help with your taxes. But this past year, I had the opportunity to mentor Shadi and several other Hawk seniors, and I found the program to be just exceptional overall. And I want to give you some examples of why I believe that. As community leaders yourselves, and I'm also going to ask the audience, I'm wondering if you've ever had a job or a class where you've been asked to self-evaluate, like how are you on some certain traits. Have you ever had to do that? Anybody up there? I see some nods. How about you guys? Anybody ever had to self-evaluate? Some of the questions that these seniors were asked was to evaluate themselves on these types of things. I talk to others about their interests. I take charge of our meeting time and make sure the plans are carried out. I am skilled at engaging my hard-to-reach Hawk team members. How many of you were exposed to these types of self-reflection questions in high school? Anybody here? I wasn't. Actually, I liked this so much that I went and posted it on LinkedIn for all of my audience and clients. I'm like, hey, business leaders, we should be asking ourselves this. These kids are eager and ready to learn these kinds of critical people leadership skills, and this program gave them that opportunity. They got to learn firsthand in a comfortable environment, without the pressure of grades, without championships, and without parental approval on the line. They came with their own questions too, like, how do you build a network? By the way, I told them to check out LinkedIn. How do you really differentiate yourself in an interview if all of the other candidates are really well qualified? And is business an easy major? This question was funny because I think the student was getting some flack for considering business because it was too easy. I gave him a piece of my mind that it might not be a bad major if it's what he wanted to study. Anyhow, I saw firsthand the tangible impact that this program has in the gratitude that my mentees shared with me in my last session, and I really look forward to the opportunity to keep being a mentor if I'm lucky enough to be on next year's roster. Thank you, Mrs. Deckrow, and thank you.
I'm going to keep us short on time, and we'll skip to you can skip 2 more of these. So these were just some feedbacks. I'll say this one thing because I think it's great. This is a feedback from an adult. One of the teams said it was nice to hear another adult's perspective because even if it's the same things your parents say, you just don't listen to your parents as much. So if you have teenagers, I'm sure you can resonate with this. Last slide. I'm just going to close you with some things worked well. We're tweaking some things. We're moving forward. Like Jackson said, the movement was great. that was a success. We're getting more speakers in the auditorium because 45 minutes with one speaker and a sophomore was boring at times. And we are moving forward with our seniors. The Zooms were not as engaging. The kids wanted real world time. So we're taking surveys, we're moving forward, but we're on to some great things. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I remember last year hearing about this the first time around and how it was starting to go, and was so impressed. And I'm even more blown away a year later, seeing everything that's been put into place and hearing from the kids that are going through this. It sounds awesome. And Nicole, if we can clone you, that would be amazing, because I would love to make sure that this gets spread to all of the schools. Do any other board members have any comments or questions? No? Okay. All right. We are going to move on to our consent grouping. I just want to throw out a reminder in case anybody came in late. If you wanted to speak at public comment, the comment cards are over there on the table, so feel free to go fill one of those out. Need a motion, please, to consider the consent grouping.
I make a motion for the board to approve consent grouping items 5A through 5C.
And do we have a second?
A second.
All right. And are there any items on the consent grouping that any board member would like to pull out for special consideration?
Yes, I'd like to move that for VB7, motion for VB7. And I don't know if I can motion to table it
VB7.
till next time, right?
the
Critical mapping.
Okay. Was there a particular question you had about that?
I would just like to hear more information in regards to, like, there's a, I'm on the finance committee, there's a kind of a big price tag on that. So I would just like to just hear a little bit more, information on it. And I would just like to motion to table it.
Okay.
Until next month if we could, or,
I can get more information on it tonight. You'd have to have a majority of the board that would want to move it to next month.
Okay. So you have we have a motion then to table.
You can put it on separate
Can-
consideration
all right.
tonight if you want to. Yep.
Okay, we'll put it under separate consideration for tonight.
Yep.
okay.
We can consider
And
that
we'll,
separately.
yeah, we'll consider it separately, and otherwise we'll go with the rest of the consent grouping as written. Okay. Superintendent Beam, are there any items that you would like to draw our attention to?
Oh, not this evening, no.
Okay. Mr. Michaud, would you care to give us an update from the Finance Committee, please?
Certainly, we had a busy month in the finance subcommittee. We received a good bond update as we look forward to our bond issue this fall, kind of a look back at 2018's bond and where it has gone. And it was amazing to see the dozens of huge spaces that have been renovated, all the new things that are available to our teachers and staff and students, and the additional things yet to come at Ada Vista and Pine Ridge, still as part of that 2018 bond. So that was a good update and overview for us. We also have quite a few items coming to us for approval tonight. The first is additional leveled literacy kits to support elementary buildings, K through 3. We've used these materials in the district for a number of years now. So these are additional kits to support our programs for a cost not to exceed $140,000. Those will be spread, these kits, across all of our elementary buildings. And that funding is coming from a state grant, specifically Section 35A5, for those level literacy kits. We also have a multifactorial cabling infrastructure update. Part of this we discussed early last week when we were all together in order to submit for a discounted rate that we were able to take advantage of last week that saved us $32,000 on this project. But the other portion of it that still has yet to happen at the Transition Center and the Administration Building. This is for the new cabling that supports all the technology and all the new things that come along with the build. So we received one bid for this from Vector Tech Group and are recommending a contract for not to exceed $165,000 to them, coming out of our 2021 Capital Projects Fund. Next, we are requested funding for a new PA system and digital clock system in the Transition Center Administration Building. This is the CareHawk system, similar to what was put in Orchard View and Central Middle School when those two schools were renovated recently. Two proposals were submitted, and we're recommending the contract to Parkway Electric and Communications for a cost not to exceed $89,000. Next, we have the approval of the first of 3 years of an agreement with Microsoft for their enrollment for education solutions and their Windows Server Data Center suite of products. We've been using Microsoft products since 2012 in the district, so this is kind of a renewal of sorts for a new 3-year contract. This, again, would be just for year 1 of 3 for a cost of $52,032, which would start April 1st of this year. That comes from the general fund. Then we have multiple roofing projects as part of our ongoing maintenance. All of these will come out of the 2021, portion of 2021 and also 2023 capital projects funds. We have roofing and wall improvements at Central Woodlands, which was actually bid out in 2 separate categories, and with contracts going to Great Lakes Systems for the wall improvement and to Hookstra Roofing Company for the roofing part of that for a total cost not to exceed $120,000. Roofing at Meadowbrook Elementary bid out to Rasmussen Exteriors for a cost not to exceed $37,000. And then a combined larger scale project for Thornapple Elementary and the Fine Arts Center roofing. 4 bids received, recommendation for the contract to go to Modern Roofing for a cost not to exceed $431,318. All of that roofing is slated to happen over the summer, with the exception of the Fine Arts Center, which I believe is due to begin in September. The critical instance mapping we can wait and chat about afterwards. We have 2 more items, furniture related. One is furniture through VS America through the Omnia Purchasing Co-op. We've got all new furniture requirements for Ada Vista, Collins, Thornapple, and Central Middle, where the renovations have been going on. So this request is part 1. We'll have more next month. This is specifically for chairs for our elementary buildings. They just have a longer lead time, so they're being asked for approval now so they can be ordered earlier to be ready for next fall school year. So that is for a cost of $56,000 from our 2021 Capital Projects Fund. And finally, new media center furniture in Collins. Some of the shelving was removed from some of the walls during the reconfiguration process in the media center, so this will replace that shelving. We went through the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance and bid this out to Duell Corporation for a cost not to exceed $42,000, also from the 2021 Capital Projects Fund. And that is the list for this month.
All right, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Machad? Okay, Mrs. Covell, could you give us a report from curriculum, please?
Yeah, thanks, CJ, for covering finance. So over in curriculum, Tamasha James presented on positive behavioral interventions and supports work that's being done in the district this year. Now, while the acronym and idea of PBIS has been around in the educational world for over 25 years now, Forest Hills started this journey about 12 years ago at Orchard View, and since then, our district schools had built up their own versions. We might recognize this here as Hawk Teams or PAC. PRIDE is an acronym that's used. PBIS is a framework for creating safe, positive, nurturing schools where every student can feel valued, connected to the school and community, and supported by caring adults. Above all, it's about understanding what the expectations are for behavior and being a responsible member of that community. This can be done with consistent, and that is the key word, consistent and clear responses to behavior throughout the entire district, of which there has been some increased need since the pandemic. Along with resources from the ISD, the DEIB office has been working on aligning PBIS efforts throughout the entire district. So since January, teams have met with consultants from the ISD and professional development sessions to build that system. And by May of this year, all involved staff will be receiving pertinent training in our consistent PBIS program. That involves everyone. So families might recall a February survey to vote on our district's consistent acronym, and PRIDE, PRIDE, was the winner. It held the majority vote. So next fall, we will have the official launch of the fully aligned PBIS framework. Afterwards, Kim Van Antwerp and the instructional coach Andy Lay presented several supplemental instructional resources. in this case, textbooks more specifically, that the social studies departments in all 3 high schools would like to purchase. Our current textbooks are outdated. Econ has been using a textbook since 2010, world history and civics from 2009, US history all the way back from 2008. I mean, that's history at this point. The sophomores who use these books had actually just been born when those were published. So it is time for an update. Teacher teams, along with Andy Lay, worked through a textbook selection process that began last spring in search of the best option, and they landed on the most recently published Savas texts, with the exception of Spanish immersion history, which is going to go with McGraw-Hill books because they have more accurate translations. So all of these resources include complete online accessibility, audio, books, downloadable versions. I mean, that way, in case the internet's not available, they can actually still learn something. And also differentiated material for special needs and multi-language learners. To further supplement, the department has also requested DBQ kits for each building, including versions in Spanish, which will pair SAT prep questions with supplemental articles. The French teachers of the district also worked through a careful instructional resource selection process, as their current textbooks are from 2010. All of the teachers in the department were part of this selection process and determined that 2 levels of Chemin's books with integrated performance assessments from Vista Higher Learning were the best. The curriculum committee has already begun its 30-day review of the requested social studies and French supplemental instructional resources. Also, along with those requests, the committee is recommending additional copies of Number Worlds, recommending the approval of those additional copies of Number Worlds and Read Naturally to support resource room instruction and leveled literacy intervention kits for elementary reading intervention. So these LLI kits have been in the district for a number of years, but many buildings are in need of additional levels. So they're just asking for something that had already been approved in the past, and that's what we're looking at for this month.
All right, thank you very much. That was very thorough. Both of them, very thorough. Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Covell? Okay. Mrs. Ninemeyer, could we please have a roll call vote? Not including yours.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Mashad?
Yes.
Mrs. Ford?
Yes.
Hang on. Dr. Fausen?
Yes.
Mrs. Cavell?
Yes?
Mrs. Ninemeyer, yes.
Okay.
All right, so now we can
Consider the separate item, okay, which is the critical incident mapping. If you could provide a little bit more information on that for us?
Sure,
please.
a little bit of additional information. So critical incident mapping is something that the Michigan State Police Office of Emergency Management is encouraging school districts and other public entities to do all across the state. In this case, there's also grant dollars to help fund this project. We are working closely with the Kent County Sheriff's Office and the Kent County Office of Emergency Management. And what they are looking to do is to provide a up-to-date digital map of interior spaces for all of our school buildings and sites, as well as an up-to-date digital map of all of our exterior sites. And similar to the military, they want to put this on a grid system. So when they look at Orchard View Elementary and call out area C4 or C3 on that map, first responders all have the identical map, and they could see exactly where that spot is, not only on the site grid, but also within the building, on the building grid. So this would be provided to firefighters, EMT, police officers, all first responders would have identical maps regardless of what their jurisdiction is, and they could have that on any handheld device that they would carry. And so that helps to get those services precisely where they need to be through dispatch on that. As they look at that map. And in this case, the vendor being recommended by the county is Critical Response Group. And they're looking at the same vendor to help provide these services for schools all across the county. So the first responders have something that looks very similar from device, and school to school to school on that. And again, these would be dollars that we could charge off to the grant that we've received from the state of Michigan for school safety and security. So it would be something that, although it does come out of our general fund, it would come from specific grant dollars that are set aside for allowable uses for safety and security. And this would indeed be an allowable use. So that's what the critical incident mapping is.
Sorry, just a couple of questions then. What do we have in place now? If we have an emergency at the school now without the critical mapping, what's in place now for a safety feature?
Yeah, so what we have is to be able to orient first responders. We do have entrances labeled in our schools, so we could say, come to door D7 in that regard, but that first responder may not know where door D7 is on the building. They're typically labeled in consecutive order all the way around the building, but a first responder who hasn't been to our site before may not know where to begin on that. So this would certainly enhance those capabilities. We can certainly and do communicate, come to the main entrance, in this case off of Pettis Avenue, or come to the stadium and come through the Knapp Street entrance. Those type of things could be relayed through dispatch, and that's what we would do currently on that.
And another question is, would we have to ever do an upgrade in the future?
Yeah, I could see where the site itself, there are modifications made to the site or even the building where we would want to update and make sure the map accurately reflects the square footage, the layout of the building, those types of things as well.
And then is the whole 68,000, that's all coming from grant, or is it part of it coming out of the general fund? I mean, I know you mentioned it before,
Right.
but I know we've saved some dollars, but for future,
Yeah,
if we have to upgrade, where would that come from?
So those grant dollars come to us from the state of Michigan, and those dollars go into the general fund, but the use of those dollars for expenditure purposes is restricted to the state's allowable use. And this would be one of the allowable uses. There's other allowable uses, but this would be one of them. It's a great question about things in the future and where would that funding come from. The state legislature has created a new categorical in this K-12 school aid budget for school safety and security. So it's very possible, maybe even probable, that we would see additional funds being placed into that categorical in future years. No one knows for sure because the current state legislature cannot obligate a future legislature to the disbursement or budgeting of those funds. However, there is a prohibition in the state constitution, section 29, that prohibits the state from placing unfunded or underfunded mandates on local units of government. So if the state said, hey, there's an obligation for school districts to keep these digital maps up to date, they cannot enforce that obligation without also providing the funding for that. That would be against the Headley Amendment to the state constitution on that. So I would expect we would see additional funds that would be there in the future to update these type of mapping systems on that. But there's no way to know that for certain at this point in time.
Just for clarification, I think that she did ask if currently the 68,000 would be funded by what's already in the general fund for this.
Yes, so this would all be covered by grant dollars that far exceed the $68,000 that we have for allowable uses for safety and security. So this would not obligate us to use any of our general fund dollars that are set aside for other purposes in our budget. Yep, good question. Sure. So you can.
Okay, so can we go ahead then with a vote on, yes, can we have a motion to consider item 5B7, the critical incident mapping?
Sure, I'll move that we specifically consider item 5B7 tonight.
I support that.
Okay, and then can we have another roll call vote, please, Mrs. Neinmeyer?
Mr. Mashad?
Yes.
Mrs. DeBoer?
Yes.
Dr. Faustin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cavell?
Yes.
Mrs. Neinmeyer, yes.
All right, thank you. Looks like we are now up to informational items. Superintendent Beam.
Just one item, and that's, I've accepted the resignation of Felicia Rosma as a social worker. We appreciate her service to the district. That's all.
Okay, that was short and sweet. The next item up is item 7, discussion. This is a discussion I just wanted to have quickly amongst the board here about the comment cards. I suggested that we start using them so that we could make meetings a little bit more orderly, which I know from when you're sitting in the audience, a meeting looks one way, it looks a little bit different when you're on this side of the table. And so I feel like that they did a really good job from this side of making things orderly and sort of knowing where things were going to go. The second part was to help identify who needed follow-up, because the cards have a spot on there to mark whether you want to have some follow-up from the district. And I thought that actually went really well in the sense that based on all the other board meetings, I would have guessed differently as to who wanted follow-up versus those who did not, based on what came in on those comment cards. So I thought it was really very helpful to be able to go, oh, this person wants follow-up, oh, this person just wanted to say their piece and they don't need any follow-up. I thought it was fantastic. I think we need to maybe talk a little bit about, within the administrative team, with the timelines for when we would expect to get back to people. I don't think that was particularly clear, and I think some things maybe went on a little bit too long before our first contact was made, but I would say that every single person that had said that they wanted to have contact last time did get contact, in the sense that we made a phone call or an email, didn't always get a response back to those, but an attempt was made to reach out to everybody. So I think the comment cards are great and think that they are worth continuing in the future, but I would like to hear what my fellow board members think about it.
I would agree. I think it's important that we get back to and have a conversation with those who want to have that conversation. I think that's a piece people are looking for. So I like that you're able to see who wants to further that conversation after their piece. And I think a lot of districts are doing it. So I think it's a good practice.
Okay. Any other comment?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think it's a good idea. It seemed to work well last month. I think it does add a good organizational piece back here that is helpful and streamlines communication, which is good for everybody, I think. And it's worth noting, I think, that like Mrs. Neinmeyer said, a lot of districts do this for organizational purposes, and a lot of public entities do this where you have to submit before the meeting even begins, and like that's your time frame. So I think it is nice that we can still try to hear some of the content. We can still kind of take this in, and if that spawns a concern or a question, that you still have the ability to get a comment in for the same evening. So I don't see too many downsides to it. Now I will ask or clarify, adopting it to our essentially protocols for now does not cement it in ink necessarily in our policy. Certainly if we continue to experiment, continue to do this, and then we have a change of heart or that it stops working well, we can always go back and undo this effectively, right, if we need to.
Correct. This could be just considered sort of a procedure that we use right now, and if we like it, we could then go to the law firm and ask them to update our policy, and then that would go to the policy and update.
Right. More
and
permanently.
then the board would have to vote on updating the policy. So this would just be procedurally how we would want to move forward.
I do feel like the pilot went well. I support this for all the very reasons they'd already mentioned. I especially appreciate that you acknowledge that perhaps responses didn't come as fast as we had hoped, but that's also because we are piloting something new here and we are understanding how that's working along the way.
Right.
So I definitely think this is worth continuing to pursue and to tweak and improve as we go.
Okay.
I'd just like to add that I like the idea of having the cards as to responding back to people. I think it's a great way of tracking some of the comments that we've heard, and I know sometimes we kind of forget what was said or who said it. I'm just wondering if it would be necessary to really have their name and address on the card and then also have to do it from the mic. It just seems like a dual effort. And does their time start when they're there if they have to give dual information? And my other concern is I don't like to see people cut off either. So I don't know if turning the cards in, even if it's somebody who felt like Mary last week offered, if anybody wanted to speak, I would think that we would want to open up that. So if somebody wanted to quick fill a card out and felt compelled to speak, that they would still have the opportunity. I just don't want to see anybody get cut off. That's just for me. Because sometimes it is scary sitting there and wondering if you're going to go to the mic or not, you know, and something might inspire them, something they've forgotten or something that they felt compelled to bring up, you know, or just to say, you know, kind words or, you know, to bring up an issue and stuff. So I would like to see it if we can morph it so we don't cut the public off. Thanks.
All right. Well, I guess you have.
Yeah, I do.
something else
I
you
just
say?
want to
Go
say
ahead.
that I think it's really important at the end to make sure that we ask if there's anybody else who has to speak. We almost missed that last time, and I think that would be a real shame to not do that. So I agree with you on that one, Holly. I think that's very important.
All right, so I guess I would like to entertain a motion then to formally adopt this into our procedures so that we don't have any questions about whether this is something we're doing or not. It's again, not putting it into our policy officially yet, but just a procedure on how we would run the meeting.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I'd like to formally opt that we adopt these comment cards as part of our public comment procedures at future board meetings.
I second that.
Okay, then I guess we can take a vote and we'll do a roll call just to make sure everybody's voice is heard.
Okay. Mr. Michaud?
Yes.
Mrs. DeBoer?
Yes.
Dr. Fossen?
Yes.
Mrs. Cavell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ninemeyer, yes.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much. And we are now up to the superintendent's report. Mrs. Brink, I believe, is picking up the comment cards right now, so
Wonderful.
take it away, Mr. Beam.
Thank you. Thank you to Eastern High School for hosting us tonight. Amy, thank you for having us all here. And a big thanks to Amy and Nicole Decro. Nicole, thanks for the update on the great things that are happening with the career program here. And we are excited to expand that, Dr. Fossen, as you mentioned, to all of our high schools on that. I think that's a wonderful offering, not only to bring community members in to share the amazing talents and gifts that we have throughout our community, but also for our students to get a perspective. I thought the students spoke to this very well, not only about the things that they have an interest in, but also confirming some things where they say, hi, that's clearer now, that's not part of my pathway on that, to be able to help them with all of that work. So thanks to all the team here for everything that's been happening to help our kids throughout the year. A big thank you to our media material coordinators for all their work on implementing and working on our new procedures and handbook, but also their work on putting together a new practice to help all of our families select their own preferences for their kids as we move forward with that. And I'm very much grateful for all of the work of our media material coordinators in working on all of this work. Extending my gratitude also to our staff and community. Friday was our half day where we had professional learning going on at all of our schools, and staff were coming together to cross-pollinate all the great skill and knowledge and experience that they have. I've always believed that within our staff members, we have all of the solutions to any problem that may come forward. It's just trying to find the time and the space to be able to collaborate and to share all of that knowledge and information. So thank you to our parents and families and community for giving us that half day. I know sometimes you look at the calendar, if it's like my household, and you see, oh, I see we have the kids at home half day on Friday, and what are we going to do? And there's a little bit of an audible on that. And I realize that is a sacrifice for our families, but that is a sacrifice that pays dividends in building a stronger educational system here. So everyone working together on that makes a big difference. So thanks to our staff for all of their time, and thanks to our families and parents for working with all the community's kids on that afternoon this past Friday. And then I'd like to also say we are excited this week for an opportunity we've not had previously, and that's for all three of our high schools coming together for a service project. Service is something that we think is an important part of students' well-rounded education. And all three of our high schools are coming together for a friendly competition. Think of your favorite quiz program, and they're going to be competing for the prize, but actually they are raising funds. And it's Go Orange this week, and Go Orange for helping to wipe out hunger in our area and supporting local charities, Kids Food Basket. And that's going to be an exciting event this week where all three of our high schools are coming together to serve beyond themselves. And so we're very excited about that. And that concludes my report tonight.
All right, thank you very much. We are now up to board communications. I have a number of them. So if anybody else has any that they would like to share before I jump in with my long list.
Sure, I can start if you want, just with a quick update from the foundation. This is one of the two greatest months, I think, for the foundation, or one of my favorite two. It is Grant Cycle Award month and passing out month. They had a busy review process. The foundation fulfilled 26 different requests for funding for different things across the district, totaling $126,000 this spring, for a total fall plus spring of $192,504 given directly back to teachers and students in classrooms. Some really cool projects, some really cool new things coming. So again, a wildly successful grant cycle for them. The trivia night they hosted last week was also a great success. We got to enjoy that, some of us up here. They're just doing great work in the community and all to the benefit of the staff and teachers and students here. So it's wonderful. Dates to keep on your calendar: May 4th is the State of the District Luncheon, and more information will be coming out for that. And then June 20th is the annual Charlie Anderson Golf Tournament over at Thornapple. So those are the updates from the foundation for this month.
And we did not win, if anybody was wondering. I had the privilege of going to the KCTC, Kent Career Tech Center, a couple weeks ago for a dinner they hosted for board members and admin members across Kent County. And I, having little kids, had no idea what KCTC was. It's more geared toward high school students. But what an amazing program that we have available to our kids. There are so many different careers they can go check out there as classes. The entire culinary team served us. So they were serving us, they were cooking, they made these beautiful chocolate arrangements in the centerpieces. And then we got to hear from 5 of their students just talk about their stressors and how big of a stress social media is, and how much pressure is on them to do well in school and to be involved in everything, and then to go home and look at Facebook and see your friends doing all sorts of fun things that you didn't do. And so just all the stressors. And every one of them, when asked what they enjoy about school and their school, was absolutely their teachers and how wonderful the staff is, and how welcome and warm they are to make sure students feel welcome and included at school. So it was very cool. And they have another one next month that I hope I can go to.
All right, I guess I'm up. I have a few here. Superintendent Beam and I had the opportunity to do a training that was jointly held by the School Board Association and the Superintendent's Association on board superintendent relations, and I thought it went very well. It was a great training. I felt like they really talked a lot about the stuff that I talked about last time, about maintaining your particular roles and responsibilities and making sure you're not cross-stepping over into areas that you shouldn't be, and making sure that you just work together on everything. I thought it was a really well-done training. We also met last week to conduct the superintendent's evaluation, the quarterly evaluation. Sort of, it's an interim because it wouldn't be fair to have a whole year go by without touching base on how things are going. So we had that last week, which I felt like went very well, and went over a lot of things that he's going to be providing us updates on for his evaluation in the summertime. We also met last week with our law firm, who helped walk us through a lot of the different legalities that surround collective bargaining, because all 7 of our collective bargaining groups are coming up for negotiations this spring. So that was helpful to get the lawyer's perspective on do's and don'ts, things like that. And then the last thing that I wanted to comment on was that we've been getting, obviously, a lot of questions about books over the last month or longer, phone calls, media inquiries, things like that. A lot of people wondering if we do anything to hold the superintendent accountable, and yes, we do. That was a topic that we talked about in evaluation last week. The board doesn't really have a platform other than our board meetings. So I know a lot of people have questions, and this is really sort of where we can say something about it. And so I actually wrote down my comments so that I wouldn't forget them. So if you will indulge me here for a second, I will go through the statement here. For more than 2 years, public schools across the nation have been subject to political attacks. These attacks are supported by groups who manufacture crises in the advancement of culture wars and an attempt to paint public schools as indoctrination centers. Forest Hills Public Schools has not been immune to these attacks. These groups have waged recall campaigns against dedicated members of the Board of Education, accused our educators of grooming children to be sexually exploited, and some even advocate for the defunding of public schools. One of their primary tactics to drum up support has been to attack library books in media centers, classrooms, and on school shelves. Every month at board meetings, members of the public rail against books they don't believe should be in our school libraries. Excerpts are read in an attempt to incite outrage and claim that this is what the district is teaching. Oftentimes, these books have been on our shelves for many years. Oftentimes, these books haven't even been checked out. In an effort to dispel some outrage, Superintendent Beam saw that a few of the books that a small group of people were complaining about were among those with limited or no circulation history. He took it upon himself and asked that those books be removed. He has since acknowledged that this is not the role a superintendent should play, and decisions about the books on shelves should be left to our media center professionals. He has asked that the books that were removed by his direction be put back in the media centers and for the media coordinators to make any and all determinations moving forward. With our board's goal of increased transparency, the books that were removed in June and the decisions regarding them are as follows. Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out, The Handmaid's Tale, a graphic novel, Looking for Alaska, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and My Friend Dahmer have all been returned to the shelves at Northern High School. At Eastern Middle and High School, Looking for Alaska was lost, and it is not being reordered due to a lack of interest. 19 Minutes, a novel, was decided to be moved from the middle school to the high school shelves. And at Central High School, Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out, Looking for Alaska, and 19 Minutes are being reordered. And The Handmaid's Tale, a graphic novel, and My Friend Dahmer are both not being reordered based on a lack of student interest. The superintendent has asked his staff to develop written procedures to formalize how books are acquired and retired from our collections, as well as the procedures that would allow parents to restrict their own child's access to certain materials while leaving the entire collection open to students whose parents do not want any restrictions. These procedures will be communicated later this school year. The Board of Education is comfortable with the procedures that Superintendent Beam's staff is working on and are hopeful that they will allay the concerns of both both parents who would like greater control over what their students read, as well as those parents who wish for their children to access a robust catalog of diverse reading material. Let us be abundantly clear. Forest Hills Public Schools does not ban books. We are dedicated to providing a wide variety of reading material that allows students to grow and learn both about themselves and others. As for the speculation that Superintendent Beam is resigning because of books or that he has been terminated by the board, that is categorically false. The Forest Hills Public Schools Board of Education supports Superintendent Beam. While Mr. Beam has mentioned many times over the last several years that he is eligible for retirement, the decision to announce one's retirement is a personal decision and one that has not been formally made. The most important thing is that the Board of Education is committed to maintaining our excellent working relationship, and we will continue working hard for all the students entrusted to the care of Forest Hills Public Schools. Are there any other board communications?
Yeah, I would just like to say that your voices are heard. If you don't think we're listening, we are. And now we have a way for those that disagree with some books to have their parental rights and have their child not have access to those books, and that's their right as a parent. And then we also have the other side, that all books should be mirrors and windows into your own experiences and experiences of others, and to make sure that there are a diverse population of books. And the administration here and the board agrees on that. So we are trying to listen to all of you while making sure our children love to read and have books available for them. So I'm ready to move forward. I hope everybody else is.
I would just like to say one thing. I think part of the speech that you just gave, I don't believe the parents came to the microphone to attack. They had a concern, and I think I would just like to clarify it, that there are a great number of parents that are concerned about things that are in our school. There's things that they love about our school, and I think for 2 years what we've been listening to is people who have a heart for protecting kids. And if that's their opinion, fine, but I don't think the word attack would be what I would use for that. I would say it would be a heartfelt concern that came to the mic, just as it was for somebody who came with a heartfelt concern to the mic to keep the books in the library as well.
All right. Any other board communications? All right. Then at this time, we welcome members of the community to address the board. When you are called, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If your concerns have been addressed and you want to pass, feel free. Please direct all of your comments to the board. Per established procedures, we will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. Everyone who indicates that they would like follow-up from the district will get follow-up regarding their comments. At the moment, yes. That takes what, 4 seconds? Sure. All right, we're going to start with students first. We have Owen Huffnagel.
Hi, I'm Owen Huffnagel. I lived at 7665 Honey Creek. I'm here to talk about the books. I'm Jewish, just to start off straight. And there was a couple of books, I believe, that were banned or censored, I guess, because they were about the Holocaust and other Jewish events in the past. I don't think that's right, because history shouldn't be censored. No one's history should be censored, and not just Jewish people can see themselves in books, but also because, people need to learn about this stuff. And as George Santayana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. If people are just, not learning about terrible events that happened in the past, then they're going to happen again, and no one wants that to happen. And yeah, thanks.
All right. Next, Paul Doyle. No, I'm on staff.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. You have my home information on file as an employee of the school district. I wanted to comment on the topic of 21st century learning. The presentation that we received tonight was a tremendous exemplar of the type of curriculum and the experiences that this district should be providing for its students. I think the program that we were shown a year ago and that has been acted upon is a wonderful beginning, but it's just a beginning. It should be grown and spread throughout the district. I would encourage the board to set a clear priority on expanding 21st century learning opportunities within this district, to define goals, and to make, as a matter of practice, reporting on progress towards those goals a part of these meetings regularly, so that we keep curriculum and what's best for the kids front and foremost in front of the community, the teachers, and everyone else. Thank you.
All right, Dawn Ruprecht.
Correct.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dawn Ruprecht, and I live at 2526 Buttrick. I am a lifelong Forest Hills resident. I'm a Forest Hills grad. My children are Forest Hills grads, and I think it's very important for every member of the board to listen to what I have to say. The second leading cause of death in young people, ages 10 to 24, is suicide. That number quadruples in the LGBTQ community. Harassment and bullying is a huge factor in the increase in those numbers. In our 2022-2023 Student Family Handbook, we, as a district, describe harassment as verbal, written, or physical conduct that denigrates or shows hostility or aversion towards a student because of race, color, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, disability, or any legally protected classes. Our policy is clear that this doesn't just apply to students. It applies to admin, staff, board members, parents, guests, community members, and violations of this policy per our records are, students can be suspended, staff can be fired, and parents can be excluded from activities, classroom activities and school events. Imagine being a Forest Hills student, especially an LGBTQ student or an ally, that has heard some of the just bigoted rhetoric that is spewed at these board meetings and online. We have you, as you touched on, you guys have been called groomers, which is pedophiles. You've had a teacher, beloved teacher, publicly accused of stalking. You have a student that was bullied online by a parent in this room, a public figure, that when he very politely approached her to say that his experience in the school was different than what she was hearing, he was told to stop playing dumb. And when he got nervous and left the conversation, she went on to cowardly attack his reputation to other parents. He was a child. We have a current school board member who, when asked if LGBT kids and educators should be able to identify as such at school, she refused to answer. This is just a fraction of hundreds of incidences that we have documented in the last months and year. Dan, you are under siege. I would not want your job. But according to our policy, you are the sole person that can make sure that our harassment policies are implemented. You are listed as only you. And to just pass it out once a year in a handbook is just not enough. We need to be on the offensive.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Stephanie Boone. Stephanie Boone.
That's my name, don't wear it out. Last week, Superintendent Beam penned a letter of apology to the staff members for taking book decisions into his own hands. But bus drivers were left out, parents were left out, and I'd first just like to make sure that each member of the board here received a copy of his apology letter. Yes? Okay. Because to me, it appears to be admission of guilt. If a person robs a bank and returns the money 9 months later, does that mean that they didn't rob the bank and that they shouldn't be held accountable for theft? I think not. We all know that Superintendent Beam's remaining time at FHPS is short, but does doing an about-face on the actions he took to protect students from sexually explicit content ring true to you all as genuine? Members of FH for Just Education have had multiple conversations with Mr. Beam and Mr. Haid, during which he has called those who support sexually explicit books crazy. He has fully admitted to removing them on the record based on R-rated content, but now says it's because they weren't being checked out. He has publicly spoken about their inappropriateness for his own kids and others, and he knows it. We all know it. If you think for 1 second that he made this move because he actually supports porn in schools and smut for kids, you are wrong. He's trying to save himself a pension. He is in survival mode and is hoping you'll see him out on a cool 6-figure paycheck. Seems like it's working so far. And when using pointed words such as attack and weaponize, Dan, you better have some evidence, because you've shown none. We have not attacked, we have not weaponized, nor would we. You gave all kinds of BS excuses for why you did what you did. Only a fraction of 1% of our books contain profanity, he says. And they have been weaponized against public education, he says. Well, guess what? Only a fraction of 1% of school-aged kids identify as LGBTQ, yet we have turned our schools upside down and backwards for that population. Can't we do this for the smut in our schools? We do need diversity and inclusion in our schools and in our media centers. We need culture, faith, tradition, all of the above. What we don't need is XXX-rated peep show style sections for a fraction of 1% of students who are even old enough to read them. Get it out of our schools. The only people Dan owes an apology to are the children he just wronged. Just know that the pressure you all have put on him to provide porn for kids in school has caused him
Stephanie.
to behave unprofessionally.
Thank you.
Shame on you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this next one, I'm sorry, I can't really read it. It just looks like one word, like one name, not a.
It's with a D?
Yeah, back to basics.
Good evening. My name is Angelo. I live in the Forest Hill School District. First thing I'd like to say is the VB7, the critical incident mapping. I know you've all voted on it and you're all excited about it. One thing that the police officers and first responders work well with is north, east, and south. I understand they don't know where door D7 is. What happens when that RF scanner doesn't work properly, or it wasn't charged, or it doesn't have the proper download of the mapping? $63,000 seems like a lot. Just keep that in mind. The next thing, I like to have to say that I like what that young man had to say. He had some good information. We do need proper books in our school. Some of the things that we don't need in the school are some of the other books that don't educate these individuals. So, for example, the young lady prior to me, she certainly expressed herself well. So I won't go that route. But what I'd like to tell you is, if those books have to remain, put them in an area that they cannot have access to. They have to sign them out properly. I tell you, when I got together with my buddies, we certainly didn't ask his father if we could look at his dirty magazines before we looked at them. So to go with your 1% that they haven't been checked out, I can tell you they've been reviewed. The other thing, too, is that you've also had other groups within the school without parents' permission. Now, you say that you have these sign-out forms or forms of consent. No, maybe my child did forget it or he left it in his book bag, but maybe if he didn't bring that back to you, he wasn't allowed to participate in that particular class or course. I think that's the best way to look at it. Safe Haven Ministries. I understand we have some different things going on with that particular group and why they weren't invited to this particular class to teach for 5 days and speak on trans ideology and the LGBTQ dialogue. It's too much. These children are between the age of 10 and 15 years old. They're a pile of clay. They absorb a lot of information. The federal government doesn't let you vote until you're the age of 18. You certainly can't have a drink until you're the age of 21. Why are we certainly putting this information out there for these children at this time? It's disappointing when my child goes to school and has to see the LGBTQ forms and the bake sale. When you walk into school, you should be focused on the science posters. You should be focused on the math, the chess club. You should be worried about the can drive for the whatever school promotion's going on. back to basics. You shouldn't be focused on this other stuff. I think if we remove that information, the young lady that had the LGBT questions and comments, concerns about hate and such, that would be removed. There's current posters in there now for the student union, and it's dealing with just the black student union. I have photos of that if you'd like to see it afterwards. Those particular individuals with the black power symbol behind it, I think that's disappointing. It should be just one student union. That's what I have to say. Back to basics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy Ackman.
Stacy Ackman. I live in the Forest Hills Northern School District. I just want to say really shame on all of you board members for you talk about, you fully support Dan Beam. You all know that he has lied to you. So you want to talk about having consistent PBIS? I hope that you guys will be there because everyone knows that Dan Beam has lied. All of you know it, and you're not holding him accountable for it. So what are you trying to teach our students here? What are you trying to teach our students in the district? What are you saying to our teachers in the district who feel essentially like this is Trump being reelected in 2016? When that letter came out, they vacillated between rejoicing and worrying that Scott Haid was going to take his place. We don't ban books. I'm currently going through 2,066 pages of weeded books from the last 18 months. So let's see what you say at the next meeting when you have a copy of that. You'll probably say nothing. That's what I'm going to assume. But Jewish books, books about gay kids, LGBTQ, they're all gone. At Haid's direction, mainly, we ban books. It's called shadow banning. That's what the American Library Association calls it. So I'm sure you guys will continue to not do anything about it because why punish this one person? We'll just punish all the staff that continue to risk their job to make this information public so that maybe the people in power will do something, which you continue to not do. I made it clear to at least one member of the board, who I'm sure communicated it to you, that Scott Haid had the book Ida and Jake Save the Parade removed from $800 book kits for every first grade thing. We have teachers now willing to talk about it. Why don't you contact them and ask? I told the board member that I spoke to, you need any evidence of it, the source can email you directly. You know why they were removed? Because the story featured two mothers. I heard this directly from the book rep, who called to warn him that the book featured two moms. So maybe after different outside organizations and attorneys get involved, you'll decide that you do want to do something. Maybe it doesn't impact you enough now, but I hope it will be a different story next meeting.
Thank you, Stacy. Ed Abufidel.
My name is Ed Abufidel. I live on Scarborough Drive in Ada. I want to bring to the attention of the school board and those in attendance an article in yesterday's Grand Rapids Press, which came from the Washington Post. It was entitled, "Slavery Was Wrong, and 5 Other Things Some Educators Won't Teach Anymore. To mollify parents and obey new state laws, teachers are cutting all sorts of lessons." The article states that teachers around the country are being forced to stop teaching certain topics, quote, as they face pressure from parents worried about political indoctrination and administrators wary of controversy, as well as a spate of new state laws restricting education on race, gender, and LGBTQ issues. Among the topics being banned, that slavery was wrong. Excerpts from Christopher Columbus's journal, the book A Vindication of the Rights of Women. In a statistics class, a data set on the use of force by police, the books Huckleberry Finn and Of Mice and Men, and a Library of Congress video of a cakewalk, which was a form of protest by Black Americans before the Civil War. These examples, as well as dozens of others that you can read online, are the endgame of the tactics by some in the state to erase the history and the visibility of many Americans from our libraries, our curriculums, our schools. If these tactics are successful here in Forest Hills, will our children be prepared to succeed as adults? Will they be ready to lead businesses, to serve as judges or doctors or teachers or scientists, if they don't understand how our country works today and how choices made before they were born affect what happens today? Removing criticisms of slavery from the curriculum because that's a stance or an opinion? Really? That's what the article says. The teacher talked to their principal, and that's what the principal ordered the teacher to, not to teach that idea anymore. What would our universities look at to think, looking at our children coming, will they say they're coming from one of those districts if we give in to these kind of tactics? Please, board, resist these pressures because they're coming. Be brave for our kids' sake.
Scott Van Solkema.
Hi, Scott Van Solkema, live in the district. I'm here again asking for more financial transparency. This month, you are authorizing the spending of $12,091,696.09. Approximately $7.7 million of that is for general day-to-day expenses, athletics, debt, capital projects, childcare, etc., things that should be public. Approximately $4.3 million is for employees and their benefits, which they obviously don't need to know. My concern, as it has been for the past few years, ever since the August 2021 Board of Education meeting at the bus garage, is there is no transparency as to what you guys are approving. Every other local government board is transparent with their day-to-day operations and their spending. Their board packets show all the transactions that are getting approved for the public to see. Granted, they are not spending nearly as much as FHPS, typically only hundreds of thousands of dollars, occasionally over $1 million in a month. Now, you may not think that you are part of the government, but you are. You are funded by tax dollars, our tax dollars. Now, in the past, I have FOIA'd the financial records of the day-to-day operations. Again, because you are part of the government, you have to release those documents to me. I'm asking President Fausen to honor your campaign promises and not be just another politician. I've asked you about this before, but since you're now the president, do something about it. Demand Julie Davis to provide that information in the board packets. She works for you. If you forgot your campaign promise, here it is. In your September 21, 2020, Kristen Fausen for Board of Education Facebook page post, you said, quote, "I believe I can help achieve greater transparency between the school board, superintendent, and the greater Forest Hills community. At a basic level, the agenda and meeting minutes distributed before and following board meetings are so minimal that they provide little useful information. I would improve these so that the community is informed of what specifically is on the agenda and actively encourage parents, teachers, and community members to provide their opinions with enough time for the board to consider them before important decisions are made. Likewise, the substance of discussions and resolutions should be publicly available to enable the community to understand how and why decisions were made. It is the board's responsibility to set school policies, but stakeholders should have ample opportunity to provide their input. If elected, I will be committed to ensuring that such opportunities are more available. Additionally, end quote, public comments used to be earlier in the meetings. They were changed at the March 2022 Board of Education meeting. Now it is the last agenda item after you people have already made your rubber-stamped decisions. Who approved that change? There's no public documentation about that change that I could find. Public comments are still first during the finance and curriculum meetings, but those are sparsely attended. Now you have this ridiculous plan of having to sign up to make public comments. Perhaps President Fausen spent too much time in Russia, as that is what dictators and socialists like, no public comments or citizen input. She did spend time in Russia. She was there a year. Now you have this, please
Scott.
add public comments about
Thank you,
things
Scott.
on the
Your time
agenda
is up.
before you vote. Thank you.
Vincent Maher.
presentation is rated R for depictions of sexual violence against a minor. All people younger than age 21 are asked to leave. So, this book is called Kite Runner. It's a Northern High and Eastern Middle and High School, making it available to kids as young as 12. Why am I still reading this, and why should you care? Hassan lay with his chest pinned to the ground. Kamal and Wali each gripped an arm, twisted and bent the elbow so Hassan's hands were pressed against his back. Asif knelt behind Hassan, put his hands on Hassan's hips, and lifted one of his bare buttocks. He unzipped his jeans, dropped his underwear. He positioned himself behind Hassan. I could hear Asif's quick, rhythmic grunts. This book is set in Afghanistan during the rise of the Taliban. The depiction is of the sodomy and rape of an ethnic minority child. But in the last board meeting, Mr. Michaud said at the 1 hour, 37-minute mark, a book cannot be judged on a paragraph legally if the book in its entirety has its merit. However, Mr. Beam said at 57 minutes, we also don't want something that's confusing or hidden to the folks. This book is fiction. It cast Pashtuns as oppressors and Hazaras as victims, and it became popular in the US, but in Afghanistan, the author's reductionist approach was vilified as stoking flames of division. The outcry reverberated worldwide per the article that I've provided. The author was identified as oversimplifying ethnicity and religion, ignoring the deep political and socioeconomic divisions. He was denounced as a false cultural authority. Lack of nuance poisons our children who are too far away to know the real Afghanistan and forced to use this book as an inaccurate monochromatic mirror. The merit of this book is thus questionable. Mr. Bean said at 1 hour and 18 minutes, it's helpful that these processes and procedures are at the building level. They know that there's a student coming forward that has emigrated from country X, Y, or Z. What if that student is a Pashtun refugee? What if this book pre-poisoned our children's minds? What chance does she have to show her character? This is a building level failure. Dr. Fawson said at 1 hour, 56 minutes, everybody feels entitled to go directly to the top. We've made it clear tonight that everybody has specific roles. The board's role by policy 2101A1, 2, and 3 is governance, not management. Policy implementation and administrative details are overseen by the superintendent, who is responsible for the effective administration and supervision. The board will employ or contract for a superintendent. Something has already gone horribly wrong at the building level if an ethnically divisive book is used as a mirror for children. One level higher is you. Per Dr. Fawson, at 1 hour, 43 minutes, we set the vision. We are 30,000-foot thinkers. The vision has led to this, and so here I am. Dr. Fawson, you are newer. Some of this predates you, but it's your watch now. My speeches are a symptom of a systemic problem. Until you set policies to correct your predecessor's dereliction and align with community values, I will continue to present monthly and make building level rot transparent to you, Mr. Beam, and the public at large. Good day.
Thank you. Thomas Nemchek.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am actually bringing this to your attention because it was something that was codified into law in Michigan compiled law. It's 380.10, Rights of Parents and Legal Guardians, Duties of Public Schools, Section 10. It is the natural fundamental right of parents and legal guardians to determine and direct the care, teaching, and education of their children. The public schools of the state serve the needs of the pupils by cooperating with the pupils' parents and legal guardians to develop the pupils' intellectual capabilities and vocational skills in a safe and positive environment. Why is that important? Well, Section MCL 38010A, which was added at the conclusion of the last legislature, required that the posting requirements of certain constitutional and statutory provisions in the public school. Section 10A, 1, beginning January 1st, 2023, the board of a school district or intermediate school district or board of directors of a public school academy shall ensure that the text of Section 1 of Article 8 of the State Constitution of 1963 and Section 10, which I just read, as added by 1995 Public Act 289, is prominently posted and maintained in all of the following areas in a manner that is easily accessible to the public. A, the room or rooms in which the board or board of directors conducts its meetings. B, an office in the school district's, intermediate school districts, or public school academies administrative building. C, the principal's or chief administrator's, as applicable, office at each school operated by the board or board of directors. 2, beginning January 1st, 2023, the department shall ensure that the text of Section 1 of Article 8 of the State Constitution of 1963 and Section 10, as I read, as amended by 1995 Public Act 289, is prominently posted and maintained in each building operated by the department. Beginning January 1st, 2023, the department shall also ensure that the text described in this subsection is included in each manual and in training materials provided to each employee of the department. Section 3, beginning January 1st, 2023, the State Board of Education shall ensure that the text of Section 1 of Article 8 of the State Constitution of 1963 and Section 10, as I read, is prominently posted and maintained in each meeting room in which the State Board of Education meets. And beginning January 1st, 2023, the State Board of Education shall also ensure that the text described in this subsection is included in each manual and in training materials provided to each employee in the State Board of Education. This law takes effect 91 days after the adjournment of the 2022 regular session sine die, which means that by the next meeting, you have to have that displayed prominently. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Nemchek. It's right there on the wall.
I'm just letting you know.
Jackie Stacy.
You're probably wondering why this old lady is up here, but I have a lot of concern. We moved from the west side 23 years ago. We have had coaches, teachers. Many of my grandchildren graduated. I've got great-grandchildren in this school and a lot more coming up. I know we've been trying to push this book out of the library. And I have a couple kids here. I really wouldn't want them to hear what I'm going to read. It's very inappropriate for kids, unless the parents want them to stay. This came from a book in the library. And I do not feel right about reading it, but I'm trying to support my family. This came out of book Push. I think daddy sick me, disgust me, but still he sex me up. I nauseous in my stomach, but hot tight in my twat. And I think I want to back the smell of the bedroom, the hurt, he slapped my face till it sting and my ears sing separate songs from each other. Call me names, pump my pussy, in, out, in, out, in, out. Ah, I come. He bite me hard, a hump. He slam his hips into the hard. I scream pain, he come. He slap my thighs like cowboys do horses on TV. Shiver, orgasm in me. His body shaking, grab me, call me, fat mama. Big hole, you love it. Say you love it. I want to say I don't. I want to say I'm a child, but my pussy popping like grease in frying pan. He's slamming me again. His dick soft. He starts sucking my titty. I want him off me. Now, if you think that's appropriate to be put in the library, at one time I thought they were taking it off, but it didn't get taken off. It's still there.
Thank you, Mrs. Stacy. Robin Vanderjack.
Good evening. My name is Robin Vanderjack, Goodwood Avenue. I just want to share with you something that I found quite enlightening. After having thrust Forest Hills Public Schools into the media spotlight, I began to wonder why Wood TV never reports on the actual offensive verbiage that is to be found within certain books on our library shelves. It could be because of the FCC. I refer you to the Federal Communication Commission's website. This is the federal agency that oversees the television and radio industries, issuing their operating licenses and maintaining decency standards designed to protect the public good. The following is taken directly from the section on obscene, indecent, and profane broadcasts. Federal law prohibits obscene, indecent, and profane content from being broadcast. Each type of content has a distinct definition. Indecent content portrays sexual or excretory organs or activities in a way that is patently offensive. Profane content includes grossly offensive language that is considered a public nuisance. Obscene content does not have the protection by the First Amendment, and broadcasting obscene content is prohibited by law at all times of the day. Let me repeat that again. Obscene content is prohibited by law from being broadcast at all times of the day. If the FCC finds a station in violation of its rules, it has the authority to impose a fee or revoke a station's license to broadcast. Knowing this, perhaps one can understand why Wood TV chooses not to report the truth that is found in our books. The FCC further states that indecent and profane content are prohibited on broadcast TV and radio between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. when there is a reasonable risk that children may be in the audience. I just want to let that sink in, that Wood TV is prohibited by law from broadcasting the same obscene, indecent, and profane material that our children are being allowed to read at school. And the bottom line is that all of you on the board have all been elected and entrusted to be the gatekeepers of our children while they are in school. If the books in our schools contain content...
Thank you, Mrs. Vanderjack. Colleen Fueling.
Good evening, Colleen Fueling, Ada, Michigan. So I kind of just have a couple of questions to pose to the board and admin. And I want to start by saying, with the censorship investigation, why did it take until now to make a statement? I mean, this came out weeks ago. We knew about it for over a year. I asked Dan directly in a parent advisory council meeting at one point if it was true, knowing it was, because I heard the recording. He denied it, said no, consider the source, which was Stephanie Boone, who posted it, which actually at this point I'm appreciative she did that. She could be the reason that we never have a book banned again in Forest Hills. And honestly, we didn't get any kind of information or transparency until the press came to the district multiple times, came to Dan multiple times. This is ridiculous. We know there's an internal email that went out to staff. We know that you, the board, have all been aware or informed of this email. The rest of the community, we had to see it on the news. So first on the news, we see Dan denying it earlier in the week. Then later in the week, we see Dan owning up to it. And that was after his review. So I have to think that there was some board pressure, which thank you, but why did it, again, take this long? And why is it acceptable that lying and lack of transparency and literally straight up lying, why is that okay? How is that okay in any world? And why are we making that the example? That's not a good precedent that we want to set in this district. Why won't Dan address this publicly to us now? Where's our email? Where's the statement coming from our administrators? Still speaking to the press, Fox 17 is live streaming right now, and they had a story come out tonight, 2 from Wood last week. This is ridiculous, and we still have not received any kind of communication from admin. Dan, we know this is not all you. You're not operating alone. Why won't you name Scott Haid? We all know who actually removed the books. It happened in a shady way in the middle of the summer. I mean, your own internal staff are the whistleblowers. Dozens of staff have come forward. This is not some kind of secret. This is something being tried to swept under the rug. It's not going to get swept under the rug this way. This is not being handled correctly. And this has nothing to do with sides or anything. This is about being transparent and following procedure and showing us that we can trust our elected officials. I want to trust all of you. Right now, I feel that everyone in the community is feeling the fractured trust that is going on here. This is not okay or acceptable. The fact that staff are afraid to speak up, I mean, that's ridiculous. To have whistleblowers who won't even speak up because they're afraid that they're going to have retaliation, that means that, we've got Scott Haid has a problem now. Christina Neese is the head of HR. She's not doing her job. Scott's doing illegal things or going at least circumventing policy. Dan, that falls onto you. So either fix that problem of those people doing this, like all of your staff wants you to, or a large chunk have come forward to, or it comes down to you. And the last thing I really want to talk about is during all of this censorship investigation and everything that's going on, we have brand new rules at Parent Advisory Council that are basically designed to censor
Ms.
parents in agenda items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don, I'm having a hard time reading the last name, Foss?
Hello, my name is Don Foss. I live at 7374 Gratian in the Forest Hills District. My comments are in response to a comment made at the last board meeting that there is racism in Huckleberry Finn. As a refresher, I provide this quote about Huckleberry Finn. In Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain depicts Southern life and society in the 1870s. The main point that Twain makes is that Southern life is not as glorious as it's made out to be. You have to remember, when referencing Huckleberry Finn, the book was written in the 19th century. It was written to tell about how life was then. That is how people thought and spoke. It was about life in a small town in Missouri on the Mississippi River. I would like to submit that language in the story, Huckleberry Finn, is colloquial. A dictionary defines colloquial this way: conversational, used in speaking. Since the speech of people varies with their education, work, and social status, there are obviously many different types of colloquial English. Born and raised in Grand Rapids, I lived in Alabama and Texas prior to the Supreme Court decision in 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education, ending segregation in schools. Let me give you an example of colloquial speech I encountered. I heard someone being asked to carry them to the store. Being practical, I thought it meant physically picking up this person and carrying them to the store. Well, later I found out that the person who asked that meant they wanted to ride to the store in a car. Another example of colloquialism I encountered sitting in an assembly in junior high in Texas, surrounded by Texas natives. I was called a Yankee. I learned that Texas folks did not like the outcome of the Civil War and took opportunity to let those of us from the up north know how they felt. It was culture shock witnessing examples of racism. In Houston, Texas, where I lived, there were signs designating colored restrooms, colored drinking fountains, and colored waiting rooms. There were repressive literacy tests and poll tax imposed to discourage the colored from voting. Public transit buses had markers in the back of the buses where colored people were allowed to sit. I recall being on a Greyhound bus bound for West Texas. The driver stopped the bus en route to pick up a white person. The driver asked a colored person to exit the bus to provide a seat for the white passenger who came on board. To the bus driver and most of the passengers, it was the way things were.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jared Jakubowski.
Jakubowski, live and in person from Grand Rapids Township. They could not be here tonight, so I was asked by Mike and Melissa Loix, parents with 3 children in our schools, to reiterate questions Mike has been asking for some time now of the board and Mr. Beam and Mr. Haid. The Loix seek on-the-record replies. First, how will you use your own currently approved student handbooks to guide your approach to the new media plans? This is a solid framework to build upon. And how will you balance freedom of speech rights and age-appropriate material? And what is your strategy for taking new media plans from a draft to refinement and release? This includes timing, approach, and who will be the contributors and methods you plan to use. Speaking of who was accountable for putting age-inappropriate material into school libraries in the first place? And who will be accountable for future content? Lastly, the Loix family asks, how can the board and whoever is accountable ensure that their children will have age-appropriate material in their school? On my behalf, I say, books are not the problem. They're a symptom of a systemic problem, not systemic racism as asserted in the superintendent's infamous 2020 letter. Oh no, it's systemic wokeism. The books we grandparents and parents have objected to are age inappropriate and an attack on traditional family values. I have graphic examples, if anyone cares to see, glaring evidence that this woke fad and this woke mass psychosis has been welcomed in and cultivated here, all cloaked in the warm and fuzzy sheep's clothing of social emotional learning. We pray that you of influence will resist prideful arrogance, overcome the fear of having independent thoughts and concerns, and honestly reflect on and challenge the faddish groupthink that has sucked in so many and pulled them along a lemming-like stampede. If you're not truly thinking for yourselves, you are not thinking at all. Now, more than ever, we need thoughtful, humble educators with integrity who will educate themselves about the 100-year Marxist public education game plan being brought to fruition everywhere. Now, it is all too real. By the way, a century ago, Lenin referred to his unquestioning, fervent followers as useful idiots. Now, you must question all these prevailing woke winds and rigorously challenge your own biases.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Jakubowski.
shoot, and those in your circle. Our schools, our
Thank you.
country, our children depend on it.
Becky Olson?
Hi, I'm Becky Olson, Pine Ridge mother. There have been some really amazing things that I've observed in the last couple of weeks alone, and I just wanted to give these compliments a platform for everybody to hear. First, I just wanted to compliment who's ever doing the social media lately, because there's just been so many wonderful things that I've learned about. I've always wanted to have more awareness of just some of the things that are going on across Eastern and Northern, because I'm a Central parent. So I just wanted to compliment that. I didn't even know that we had mock trial here, and some of the assemblies that are going on, and even just some of the sports outcomes. So I just wanted to thank you all for that. I love the instructional highlight today. That's another example of something that I didn't even know that we had, is students learning about things like LinkedIn, having mentors. So I just wanted to thank whoever was here speaking about that highlight tonight. And in fact, I'd love to know if there's more ways that parents could get involved and either offer to be a mentor, speak about their careers, and just help students, because as someone who's worked with college students and even working on intern committees, I'm always taken aback by how they are just starting to think about LinkedIn later in life. So kudos to that. And then on the school level, well, actually, I also wanted to compliment you on announcing snow days the night before, which has been really helpful because then I can't sleep just wondering if I keep checking. So thank you for that. And actually, anyone who's worried about profanity should check the responses to Dan Beam's tweets on Twitter when these students are having quite a field day with responding to him and what they plan to do with that extra time. Anyway, I also just wanted to compliment Pine Ridge and the new principal there because he has just made it incredibly fun, especially for my youngsters who went and participated in a new lip sync battle that he planned and hosted. And he also, on the snow days, our favorite thing that he does is launches a contest where he either challenges the students to show what they've built or read. And sometimes it's like, show me your snow creation that you've made, make a diorama, make this or make that. And my kids then spend the whole day doing that because then he sends out a video of what they created, and it's just so wonderful to see, and my kids love to watch the video. And then lastly, I just wanted to compliment the PTOs, because now that I've started to get a little bit more involved, I cannot get over the amount of hours that these parents spend planning everything from auctions to book fairs at our schools, and that they're planning these not even just the week of, but collecting books at the libraries in sales during the summer. And then finally, one more I just thought of is the coaches for some of the sports who involve the younger students, like to make tunnels for the football team to run through and whatnot, because my son already wants to be the ranger when he grows up. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, that was our last public comment. Was there anybody that filled out a card that didn't get called? No? Everybody good? Okay, great. Then we will move. If you have a card that you would like to bring up, that's fine. I can accommodate that right now once.
That hasn't been adopted in the policy yet.
Yeah, we actually did do that today at today's meeting.
I'll take my 3 minutes.
If you would like to fill out a card, we'd be happy to hear it.
I'll give you the card when we're done. I mean, if
Okay.
you want to pause your meeting to wait for me to
That's
fill out
fine.
the card, that's fine. So Nick Prill, I last month pointed out the same thing that Thomas did regarding MCL 38010, and I appreciate it's over on the wall, but in there it says easily accessible to the public. So maybe having it on the table, or better yet, the back side of your public participation comments would be a great place to print that so that it is more easily accessible to the public. I'd like to thank Ms. DeBoer for having the courage to stand up and bring attention to the fact that the statement that was read by the chairwoman was not a statement of the entire board. I'm sure your legal firm reviewed it and you wanted to position it as a statement of the entire board, but I think it's important to be transparent with the public and acknowledge that those are your personal beliefs that you gave us during board communications. Thank you.
All right. Then at this time, we will move on to, oh, okay.
My name is Kason Wooters. I live at 3877 Lake Birch Street Northeast, and I'm a student here at Eastern. As a student, I'm disappointed. Parents can get up here and say whatever they want about these books or whatever they claim to know about our schools, but in the end, students like Owen and I are impacted by all these decisions. They can talk about feeling left out and the anti-transparency from the board, but I want to ask, how do you think these students feel? Sorry, I just wrote this. Students are continuously forgotten about and continuously receive zero opportunities to form decisions that impact us. I'm grateful for the Student Advisory Council opportunity, which I serve on here at Eastern. This level of anti-transparency for students is completely unacceptable, and we are fed up. I speak for many students here at Forest Hills Eastern, and I'm sure many students here at other school districts, at the other schools here in Forest Hills, but arguments can be made from both sides about parents having rights, but our students here at Eastern want to know what decisions are going to be impacted or what decisions will be made that impact them and what we have to live through every day at school. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Beam, any closing remarks?
Just a couple. For me, the most important three things each day. First and foremost, safety and security of our students and staff. That's the thing I think about first and foremost every day, sometimes in the middle of the night, and I want to return to that in just a moment. Second thing is student learning, that students are always learning and growing, and there are many things that our students learn about that are challenging, that aren't always easy. We're trying to build good citizens and deep thinkers, and our teachers do an amazing job with that day in and day out. Yes, I think our teachers are, and our staff members are tired. They work hard. They're so very talented. They want the very best for kids. I see that all the time. And they're focused on student learning, and they're focused on student safety and well-being and security. My third priority is to retain and recruit the highest quality staff. We do have a challenge in our country that we have fewer and fewer people in the pipeline that want to come in and help build the next generation. And I believe it's our schools, our K-12 schools, that are building the future of our country. So we need great people all over. As I return to the safety and security, job one, that's not only students and staff members' physical safety, but it's also their psychological safety. I think about that often. We had one speaker tonight quote the real risk to students in terms of suicide risk. And that's a big issue. And that's a harm I think about. I think that comes just after accidental death. And there's a real harm from that. And I think it's important we make sure unequivocally in all of what can be confusion from time to time that we care for our kids. We want all of our students to feel welcomed and included. We want to support all of our students, whatever their needs are, whatever their struggles may be. I meet with students all the time. As one speaker spoke about our Student Advisory Council, I also have informal lunch meetings with students, and students tell me all the time the things that they're anxious about and the anxiety that they feel. I want to make sure that each and every one of our students feels seen and cared for and valued, and that they see there's an entire community, diverse as viewpoints may be, but the thing that we agree upon is lifting up our youth and caring for our youth and helping them move forward. And it's critically important that we listen to our kids. The voices of our students can tell us a lot, and I'm grateful for that time as students come forward. I was also reminded tonight of an old, I think it's kind of a documentary sort of film, maybe documentary isn't the right thing, a feature film put out by the National Geographic Association. I shared it with staff members 15 years ago, maybe. It's done by a photographer at the National Geographic by the name of DeWitt Jones. You might be able to find it out there, but it's old. But it's titled Celebrate What's Right with the World. And when we take time to celebrate what's right, we can find the energy to fix what's wrong. We don't, it's not easy to focus always on what's wrong. That can drain our energy. One of the things I notice about kids is there's lots of anxiety, and one of the things I notice about adults is there's lots of exhaustion. It's hard work raising kids, and it's hard work just being a good citizen in society today. But I know we can come together and learn from one another and celebrate so many things, almost inquantifiable, that we can celebrate. As we're in this amazing space here tonight, we are constantly trying to do better. I'm trying to do better and learn more. I am a human being. I am imperfect. I am entirely fallible. But I am committed to doing my very level best for our community's kids. And I appreciate people who, our guiding principles are listed around the room here, who will hold those up to me and point out where I fall short. And I do, and I will, and I have. But I am committed to learning, and I'm committed to growing, and committed to each day getting up and doing my level best. And I continue that commitment. I appreciate all the comments tonight and took notes, and as always, will reflect deeply on those comments. And just finally, just to say again, a thank you to all of our staff and community. We saw it tonight, the community that comes out and helps students in this school and others for all that you do to help build that next generation. Those are my closing remarks.
Thank you very much. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn this regular meeting of the Board of Education.
I second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.